Today I'm going to be reviewing the Canon EF-S 10 to 18 millimeter f 4.5 to 5.6 IS STM lens. My gear reviews are not the most masterful and technical. They're not super long and drawn out. I just want to give you some of my thoughts, any criticisms that I have, and then show you some samples, and then let you know what it's like to actually use it in the real world, instead of just inside technical tests, which are valuable, but that's not really me and that's not really my channel. So I had gotten this lens for mainly real estate photography. I needed to get something ultra wide in order to kind of fit everything in the room into my shot. And I also wanted something to use for real estate videography as well. I know some people use this for vlogs. I'm not that much of a vlogger. I don't really do that. But if you wanted to use it for vlogging, it is pretty solid. You get a nice wide angle field of view. It's pretty lightweight, and you have stabilization in this lens. Let's talk about the optical quality, since that's, at least in my opinion, the most important. Like, does it look good? I'm actually super impressed and have been with this lens. You know, Canon really takes a lot of shortcuts with their build quality to keep costs down, but they really put some decent glass into their lenses, even their cheap lenses. And this one's no exception. It's nice and sharp. Chromatic aberration is well controlled for the most part. It is slow at f4.5 to 5.6. It's a really slow aperture, and it's a variable aperture. So it is a slow lens, so it's not that great indoors. But when it comes to photography, you're able to kind of bring that shutter speed down even more because there's some stabilization. So there is a little bit of a balance there. When it comes to video low light, you're a little bit screwed. So just keep that in mind, and make sure that you have plenty of light to work with. Otherwise, you're going to be jacking up that ISO and you're going to be seeing a lot of noise. Distortion is pretty well controlled as well. You really don't see it until you get to about 10, well, more like 11 or 12 millimeters, but it's pretty well controlled compared to other lenses. You don't get that much kind of fisheye effect. You do a little bit, but it's pretty good. Not having a bulbous front element right here really makes it nice because you're able to attach filters, and as a videographer, I attach ND filters all the time to my lenses, so this is really nice to have. Autofocus. I don't use autofocus for video, just mainly for photography when I need to. And being an STM lens, if you know anything about Canon's STM capabilities, this lens is super silent and quick when it comes to autofocus. And finally, having a camera and lenses that can actually do autofocus properly, it's a game changer. Anyway, the autofocus is snappy, it's quiet, and it's just fantastic. Stabilizer, it's not like you really need it all that much because it's so wide. But if you are doing something like vlogging, I could see how it would really come in handy. And when I do attach it to the Blackmagic on a gimbal, having that on does alleviate a little bit of the micro jitters, but then in some focal lengths at some movements, then it creates a little bit of a warp effect. So I have to be really careful about how I use the stabilizer when it comes to video mode. When it comes to photography though, the stabilizer is really nice to have because it's such a slow lens. Let's talk about the build quality. Obviously, being in a Canon EF-S lens, it's got that notorious plastic mount that everyone craps on. I mean, listen, yeah, it sucks. I'm not gonna lie to you. But if you're interested in actually modifying this lens for an EF metal mount, you can check that video out. I actually have a reference video for that. I can link that right here. And you can actually modify this to kind of almost upgrade it to a metal mount EF lens, which I ended up doing. You can see that right here. And it's really nice to have this kind of capability. So yeah. What's also impressive too about this lens is its macro capabilities. Essentially, you can get pretty close to your subject, more than other ultra wide angle lenses. It's not macro in the true technical sense of the word, but it is, you can get really close, and that is quite impressive in case you do want to somewhat blur out that background. Again, this isn't like your portrait lens or something, but if you do want to have some of that artistic flexibility, you might get some with this lens. So it's pretty solid. Overall, I mean, I would totally recommend this lens. If you are a Canon crop sensor camera owner and you have an APS-C sensor Canon camera, I mean, this is kind of an essential for the bag, especially if you're needing to do any kind of architecture or real estate photography or work that in that realm. You need something that's going to capture that entire room. And this lens is guaranteed to do that. And for the price point, you really can't go wrong. I totally recommend it to any Canon camera owner. It's fantastic. I've loved it, and it is a wonderful companion piece to the other kit lens Canon uses, the 18 to 55. We'll talk about that in another video. If you're interested in purchasing it, check out a link in the description. If you found this video helpful, or if you're into gear reviews such as these, you are an independent, low budget, a budget filmmaker or photographer, you like this kind of content, these kind of reviews, smash that like button, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. I'll see you in the next one.